Lily sat in the corner of the venue, watching the last guests leave the rehearsal dinner, her mind racing. It had been a long, tiring evening, filled with laughter, clinking glasses, and the excitement of the upcoming wedding. She watched her best friend, Emma, chatting with her fiancé, Jack, and felt an overwhelming sense of disconnection from the scene. Despite the joy in the air, Lily couldn't shake the anxiety building up inside her. The weight of the secret she had been carrying for years was heavier tonight than ever before. Emma had been Lily's best friend since childhood. They had grown up together, shared their deepest secrets, and supported each other through countless challenges. Their bond was unbreakable, or so Lily thought. When Emma had started dating Jack 3 years ago, Lily had been happy for her. Jack was charming, funny, and kind. He seemed like the perfect man for Emma. But what Emma didn't know was that, from the very beginning, Lily had been in love with him. At first, Lily had tried to push her feelings aside. She told herself it was just a fleeting crush, something that would pass with time. But as the months went on, her feelings for Jack only grew stronger. Every time they spent time together, whether it was a casual dinner or a family gathering, Lily's heart would race, and she would have to force herself to hide her emotions behind a smile. The worst part was that Jack seemed to sense the tension, though neither of them ever spoke about it. He was always kind to Lily, always understanding, but there was a certain unspoken distance between them. It was as if they both knew the truth, but couldn't bring themselves to acknowledge it. Tonight, however, something was different. Lily couldn't ignore the growing sense of unease that seemed to hang over her like a dark cloud. As she watched Emma laugh and flirt with Jack, the realization hit her with a force she hadn't expected. She loved Jack, and she was about to watch him marry her best friend. The wedding was tomorrow, and everything was already in place. The venue was stunning, the flowers were arranged perfectly, and Emma's dress, white, delicate, and radiant, was hanging in the bridal suite, waiting for her. The excitement was palpable, but all Lily could feel was a hollow emptiness in her chest. She had known for months that this day was coming, but it didn't make it any easier. She had always been the supportive friend, the one who smiled and cheered Emma on from the sidelines. But today, the thought of standing up as maid of honor felt like a cruel irony. She was supposed to be helping Emma celebrate the happiest day of her life, and yet all she could think about was how much she wanted to be the one standing next to Jack, not Emma. Lily stood up, hoping the movement would shake off the heaviness in her chest. She grabbed her purse from the table and stepped outside, seeking a moment of solitude. The cool evening air greeted her as she walked into the quiet courtyard behind the venue. The soft glow of the string lights hanging above her provided a brief comfort as she exhaled deeply. She needed a moment to clear her head, to gather her thoughts before the chaos of tomorrow. But as she took a few steps forward, she saw him, Jack. He was standing near the far end of the courtyard, looking up at the stars, his back to her. He looked handsome as always, dressed in a tailored suit, his dark hair slightly tousled from the evening's events. Lily's heart skipped a beat as she watched him, her pulse quickening. She hadn't planned on running into him tonight, especially not after everything that had been building up inside her. He must have sensed her presence because after a few moments, Jack turned around and met her gaze. His eyes softened and he smiled, though there was something different in his expression. Something that made Lily's stomach twist with nervous anticipation. "Lily," he said softly, his voice warm but tinged with something else. "I was hoping I'd find you out here." She forced a smile, trying to act casual. "I just needed a moment to breathe," she said, though her voice betrayed her. She knew she sounded nervous, and it only made her more anxious. Jack stepped closer, his expression shifting from casual to something more serious. He looked at her for a moment, studying her face, before speaking again. "You know, I've been meaning to talk to you about something," he said, his voice low. "It's been on my mind for a while now." Lily's heart raced. She felt a sudden wave of panic wash over her. Was he about to tell her that he had noticed the tension between them? That he knew about the feelings she had been trying to bury for so long? She swallowed hard, trying to maintain control, but her hands were trembling at her sides. "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack hesitated for a moment, as if considering how to phrase his next words. Finally, he took a deep breath and stepped closer to her, lowering his voice even further. "I've been thinking about us," he said, his eyes locking onto hers. "And I need to be honest with you, Lily. I don't know how to say this, but I think you deserve to know the truth." Lily's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced, trying to process what he was saying. The truth? What truth? I've always cared about you," Jack continued, his voice steady but tinged with regret. "I know it's complicated. I know I'm about to marry Emma, and I'm not proud of what I'm about to say, but I need you to know that I've had feelings for you, too. For a long time." Lily's world seemed to stop spinning for a moment. Her knees weakened, and she found herself leaning against the stone wall behind her to steady herself. The words Jack had just spoken felt like a punch to the gut, sharp, unexpected, and devastatingly real. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She was paralyzed by the confession, caught between disbelief and an overwhelming rush of emotion. Jack stepped closer again, reaching out to gently take her hand. His touch was warm, comforting, but it only made the situation feel even more impossible. "I never acted on it," he said, his voice quiet, "out of loyalty to Emma. But I can't keep pretending like nothing is there. I just thought you should know." Lily stared at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times. What she would say, how she would feel, the way Jack would react. But nothing had prepared her for this. Tears welled up in her eyes as she fought to hold them back. She didn't know what to do, what to say. Part of her wanted to scream at him, to demand why he hadn't said something sooner. Another part of her, the part that still loved him deeply, just wanted to throw her arms around him and tell him that it was okay, that they could find a way to be together. But then her mind flashed to Emma, the woman who had been her best friend for as long as she could remember, the woman who would be crushed if she found out about this, the woman who had no idea what was happening right now. Lily took a shaky breath, pulling her hand away from Jack's. She took a step back, trying to find her voice. "You can't," she whispered, her throat tight with emotion. "You can't do this. You're getting married tomorrow. You can't tell me this now, Jack. You can't just change everything." Jack's expression faltered, and he looked down, his jaw tightening. I know it's wrong, and I hate myself for even bringing it up, but I just needed you to know." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, and Lily felt the weight of them press down on her. She wanted to scream, to yell at him, to say something that would make this all go away. But deep down, she knew there was no going back. No matter what happened next, everything had already changed. "I don't know what to say," Lily whispered, her voice breaking. I need time, Jack." He nodded, his face filled with regret. "I understand," he said softly. "I'm sorry, Lily. I never wanted to hurt you." She turned away from him, wiping the tears from her eyes. She couldn't look at him any longer, not now, not like this. Her heart felt like it was being ripped in two, but she knew she couldn't allow herself to fall any deeper into this mess. Tomorrow, Emma would be the bride, and Jack would be her husband, and Lily would have to learn to live with the painful truth that she had always loved the man who was never meant to be hers. As she walked back toward the venue, her footsteps felt heavy, like she was carrying the weight of the world. And in that moment, Lily knew that the hardest part of all wasn't going to be keeping her secret. It was going to be watching her best friend marry the man she loved. The hours leading up to the wedding were surreal. Lily stood in front of the mirror, staring at her reflection, barely recognizing herself. Her maid of honor dress hung perfectly, its deep emerald fabric contrasting sharply with the storm inside her. It wasn't the dress that made her feel out of place, it was the overwhelming emotional turmoil swirling in her chest. The world around her seemed to move in fast forward, while her body felt suspended in a time that wouldn't let go of her. As she adjusted her hair, running her fingers through the loose curls Emma had insisted on for her, Lily glanced at her phone. She had a few messages from Emma asking if she was ready, excited and ready to go. She quickly typed a simple reply, "Yes, can't wait." But she didn't feel ready, not at all. In fact, she felt like she was drowning in a sea of contradictions. The events of last night, the confession Jack had made, were still haunting her. She couldn't shake the look in his eyes when he told her that he had feelings for her too. It was almost as if he had been waiting for that moment to confess, carrying that burden with him just like she had been carrying hers for so long. And the worst part was that he didn't want to act on it. He wanted to stay with Emma. He still loved Emma. Jack had made it clear that he wasn't planning to run away with her. Not now, not ever. But the words were still there, hanging in the air between them. The knowledge that they shared a secret that no one else could know. Lily closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in deep. She had been trying all morning to push the thoughts out of her mind, to focus on the day ahead, to focus on Emma. It was supposed to be Emma's day. This was about celebrating the love between Emma and Jack, not about her own feelings of longing and betrayal. But how could she let go of something that had been with her for so long? How could she pretend for one more day that it didn't hurt, that she wasn't completely broken inside? "Are you okay?" A voice broke through her thoughts. Lily turned to find Emma standing in the doorway of the dressing room, a bright smile on her face, but there was something else in her eyes, something that told Lily her best friend had already noticed the tension. "Yeah, of course," Lily replied quickly, forcing a smile. She wiped a few stray tears from her eyes, hoping Emma wouldn't notice. "Just a little overwhelmed, I guess." Emma stepped closer, her arms wrapping around Lily in a warm embrace. "I know you're nervous about today, but you're going to be amazing. You've always been there for me, and today I'm so grateful to have you by my side." Lily felt a pang of guilt. She wanted to pull away, tell Emma the truth about everything, about Jack's confession, about how she felt, about the way her heart was being torn apart with every step they took toward the ceremony. But she couldn't. She couldn't do that to Emma. Not today. "Thanks, Emma," Lily whispered. "I'm just happy for you." But her words felt hollow. How could she be happy for Emma when every inch of her heart longed for Jack? How could she stand beside her best friend, smiling and laughing, while the man she loved was about to marry someone else? The thought made her stomach twist in knots. The morning passed in a blur of activity. Lily helped Emma into her wedding dress, the delicate fabric slipping over her friend's shoulders like a dream. The dress was perfect, just as Emma had imagined it. She was radiant, beautiful, glowing, and full of hope for the future. Lily smiled at her reflection in the mirror, but it felt fake. Every movement felt like an act, every word a mask. The clock ticked down, each second closer to the moment when she would have to stand in front of everyone and smile as Emma walked down the aisle to Jack. The ceremony was about to begin, and Lily felt paralyzed with fear. She had spent the entire night trying to convince herself that she could push her feelings aside, that she could be happy for Emma and Jack. After all, that's what a good friend would do, right? She had spent years being Emma's confidant, her support, her best friend. She had promised herself that she would always be there for Emma, no matter what. But now, in this moment, she wasn't sure if she could hold it together. She wasn't sure if she could be the person everyone expected her to be, when the truth was that her heart was shattering. As Lily adjusted the bouquet of flowers in her hands, she glanced over at Jack. He was standing near the front, talking to some of the groomsmen. When his eyes met hers, Lily felt a jolt in her chest. He smiled, but there was something about it, something that wasn't quite right. It was a smile of guilt, of regret, as if he knew that every word he had spoken to her the night before had changed everything. But the reality was, there was nothing either of them could do about it now. They had crossed a line, and it was too late to turn back. Lily's hands trembled as she took a deep breath. She couldn't afford to break down now, not here, not today. The ceremony was starting. The music began to play softly, and everyone stood in anticipation as Emma was escorted down the aisle by her father. Lily could barely look at Jack as he stood at the altar, his eyes glued to Emma, his face full of love and excitement. Jess? Lily watched the scene unfold in slow motion, her heart aching with every step. She had always dreamed of this moment for Emma, dreamed of the day when her best friend would find the perfect person to marry, and Jack was perfect for her. They had a connection that was undeniable. But for Lily, this wasn't just about Emma's happiness. This was about the crushing reality that the man she loved was standing at the altar, ready to commit to someone else. The ceremony went on, the vows exchanged, the rings placed on fingers. Lily stood there, barely able to hear the words as her own mind screamed in protest. She had never been good at hiding her emotions, but today she was forced to be the perfect friend, the perfect maid of honor, while her heart broke into a million pieces. When Emma and Jack shared their first kiss as husband and wife, Lily felt the room spin. It wasn't jealousy that she felt, it wasn't even anger. It was a deep, sorrowful acceptance. The love she had for Jack wasn't something that could be erased with time. It wasn't something that would just go away. It was there, buried deep in her chest, and it would haunt her for as long as she lived. After the ceremony, the reception began. The music played, people danced, and the atmosphere was full of laughter and celebration. But Lily felt like she was walking in a fog. She moved through the crowd, smiling when she had to, laughing when it was expected, but all she could think about was Jack. He was so close and yet so far away. He was standing with Emma, holding her in his arms, whispering sweet things in her ear, and Lily stood there, a silent witness to their happiness, feeling more alone than she had ever felt in her life. Jack caught her eye a few times throughout the night. Each time, he seemed to hesitate, as if unsure of what to say or do. But Lily didn't know how to respond. What was there to say? What could she say? The truth was too painful to put into words. He had made his choice, and Lily had to accept it, even if it shattered her. The night wore on, the music louder, the dancing more exuberant. But Lily couldn't escape the crushing weight in her chest. Every time she saw Jack and Emma together, laughing and dancing as husband and wife, the reality of her situation hit her like a wave. The evening seemed to stretch on forever. Lily tried to push her feelings aside, to focus on being there for Emma, but it was impossible. She had spent her whole life caring about Emma's happiness, and now she found herself questioning everything. Could she really keep being the supportive best friend while her heart bled for the man she couldn't have? How much longer could she keep up this facade? As the night came to an end, Lily found herself standing on the balcony, looking out into the darkness. She was alone, except for her thoughts. The quiet was almost unbearable. She closed her eyes and let the tears fall, the ones she had kept inside all day. She felt a mix of guilt and sadness, anger and regret, but most of all she felt the crushing weight of a love that would never be returned. She had made the decision to stay silent. She had chosen to protect Emma, to stand by her side, to be the best friend she had always promised to be. But at what cost? Lily didn't know how much longer she could keep up the act. She didn't know how much longer she could pretend to be happy for them when her heart was broken into pieces. As the night wore on, Lily knew she was standing at a crossroads. She could either accept the reality of her situation and move forward, or she could let the pain consume her. But one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The days following the wedding felt like a blur. The excitement and joy of the ceremony had quickly faded into the weight of reality, leaving Lily feeling more exhausted than she had ever felt in her life. She went through the motions, attending the post-wedding brunch, smiling at Emma and Jack's newlywed bliss, nodding politely as people congratulated them, but everything felt hollow. Nothing felt real anymore. Every glance she exchanged with Jack left a mark on her soul, reminding her of the words he had spoken in the quiet courtyard only days before. Those words had changed everything, and Lily knew deep down that they couldn't be erased. The hardest part was Emma. It had always been Emma. Lily had spent so many years building this friendship, had been by Emma's side through thick and thin, and now she was trapped in a nightmare where the one thing she wanted most, the one thing she could never have, was sitting right in front of her. The guilt gnawed at her, a constant reminder of the betrayal she felt, not only towards herself, but towards Emma. The first few days after the wedding were a haze of forced smiles and stilted conversations. The honeymoon was upon them, and as Emma and Jack left for their romantic getaway, Lily found herself alone in the city, trying to gather the pieces of her shattered heart. She couldn't escape the loneliness that crept into every corner of her life. The nights were the worst. She would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, the silence of her apartment deafening. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Jack. Every time she let her mind wander, she felt the familiar ache of longing. It wasn't just the physical distance between them that hurt. It was the emotional distance. The knowledge that Jack had made a choice, and that choice wasn't her. She tried to move on, to force herself to forget about him, but no matter how hard she tried, the thoughts of him clung to her like a second skin. One afternoon, nearly a week after the wedding, Lily was sitting at her favorite cafe, sipping her coffee, when her phone buzzed. The screen flashed with a message from Emma. "Hey, I know it's been a while, but I wanted to check in. How are you holding up? I miss you." Lily stared at the message for a few moments before typing a response. "I'm good, just busy. Things are great, though. How's the honeymoon?" She hit send, but as she did, a wave of guilt washed over her. She hadn't spoken to Emma in nearly a week. They had both been so busy after the wedding, but now it felt wrong. Lily should have been there for Emma more. She should have been excited for her new life with Jack, but instead, she was drowning in the silence of her own thoughts. The response came quickly. "It's amazing, but I miss you. I can't wait to tell you all the details when we get back. You've been such a huge part of my life, Lily. I don't know what I'd do without you." Lily's heart clenched. The words hit her harder than she expected. She had always been Emma's rock, the person who could always be counted on, no matter what. But now, Lily felt like she was crumbling, breaking apart at the seams. She didn't know how to tell Emma the truth, how to explain that the foundation of their friendship was slowly eroding beneath her. The weight of her secret was suffocating. A few days later, Emma and Jack returned from their honeymoon, and Emma immediately reached out to make plans. They decided to meet at a small wine bar near Lily's apartment, a place they used to go when they needed to unwind. The idea of seeing Emma made Lily anxious. She wasn't sure how to behave anymore. Was she supposed to act as though everything was fine? Was she supposed to pretend that her heart wasn't breaking every time she saw Jack's name pop up on her phone? The thought of facing Emma's happiness while hiding her own despair made her feel nauseous. When they met at the bar, Emma was radiant. She was glowing from the honeymoon, the smile on her face contagious. She looked exactly like the woman Lily had always admired, confident, carefree, and so in love with Jack that it seemed to radiate off her. It made Lily sick to her stomach. How could she pretend that everything was okay, when all she wanted was to scream at the top of her lungs? "Lily, it's so good to see you," Emma said, wrapping her arms around her in a tight hug. "You look amazing, as always. How've you been?" Lily returned the hug, trying to suppress the wave of emotion that threatened to overtake her. "I'm good, just been keeping busy with work and everything," she said, her voice a little too tight. Emma didn't seem to notice. I missed you so much. The honeymoon was perfect, but I couldn't stop thinking about you the whole time. I kept telling Jack how lucky I was to have you in my life. You're the best friend anyone could ever ask for." Lily felt like she was suffocating. Emma's words were like daggers, each one driving deeper into her chest. She wanted to tell her, wanted to scream that everything was falling apart inside her, but she couldn't. Emma deserved to be happy. She deserved to have this perfect life with Jack, and Lily couldn't take that away from her. She couldn't destroy everything they had built over the years just because of her own feelings. "I'm so glad you're happy," Lily managed to say, though the words felt foreign on her tongue. "You and Jack make such a great couple." Emma's face lit up. "I know! I can't believe it! I'm the luckiest woman alive!" She paused, looking at Lily closely. "But I feel like something's off. Are you sure everything's okay? You seem a little distant. If something's wrong, you know you can always talk to me." Lily's heart pounded in her chest. She opened her mouth to say something, but the words wouldn't come. How could she tell Emma that she was in love with her husband? How could she confess that the secret she had been keeping for so long was now tearing her apart? "I'm fine, really," Lily said, forcing a smile. "Just a little tired, that's all." Emma studied her for a moment, her brow furrowing slightly, but then she smiled again. "Okay, but you know I'm here for you, right? You're not just my best friend, you're family, and family always comes first." Lily nodded, feeling like she was being crushed under the weight of Emma's love and loyalty. The love Emma had for her, the trust she had placed in her. How could she betray that? How could she continue to stand by, pretending that everything was fine when inside she was falling apart? As the night went on, Lily tried her best to mask her pain, but it was getting harder. She couldn't keep this up forever. Every time she saw Emma and Jack together, laughing, smiling, living their perfect life, it became clearer that Lily was no longer part of their world in the way she once had been. She was an outsider, standing on the sidelines, watching the love of her life belong to someone else. A few days later, things came to a head. Jack called Lily. She had been avoiding him, unable to face him after their conversation on the wedding night. But now, as his name flashed on her phone, she felt a sense of dread settle over her. What did he want? Why was he calling her? Taking a deep breath, Lily answered. "Hey, Jack," she said, her voice soft, as though she was afraid to speak too loudly. "Lily," Jack said, his voice low, "we need to talk." The words hit her like a punch. She had known this moment was coming, but she hadn't been prepared for how much it would hurt. She had hoped that things might somehow return to normal, that the distance between them would fade, but now she knew it never would. "I can't do this anymore," Jack continued. "I've been trying to ignore it, trying to pretend that everything's fine, but it's not. I can't stop thinking about you, Lily. I don't know what to do." Lily felt her breath catch in her throat. She had known, deep down, that Jack was struggling with his feelings, but hearing him admit it made everything real. The pain, the confusion, it all crashed into her at once. "Jack," she said, her voice trembling, "you're married. You're with Emma now. You made your choice." "I know," Jack replied, his voice filled with regret. "But it doesn't change how I feel. I can't keep living this lie, pretending like nothing happened between us. I don't know what I want, but I can't just ignore it anymore." Lily's mind raced, her heart torn between the desire to run to him, to be with him, and the overwhelming knowledge that she couldn't destroy Emma's life. She couldn't be the reason Emma's world fell apart. She couldn't let Jack's confusion tear them all apart. "I'm sorry, Jack," Lily said, her voice breaking. "I can't do this. I can't be the other woman. You need to figure this out on your own. And Emma deserves better than this." The words felt like knives as they left her mouth. But deep down, she knew it was the right thing to do. She had to let go. She had to walk away, no matter how much it hurt. "I understand," Jack whispered. "But I won't forget this, Lily. I won't forget what we shared." And with that, the connection between them snapped, leaving Lily feeling emptier than ever before. She dropped her phone onto the couch, her hands trembling. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders, the truth of what had just transpired crashing over her like a tidal wave. She had made the right choice, but that didn't make it hurt any less. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lily allowed herself to cry. The days that followed felt like an eternity. Lily could hardly remember what she did or how she managed to get through them. Her emotions were a whirlwind of confusion, guilt, and anger. She had been strong for so long, keeping everything inside, but now it was all unraveling. She felt exhausted in a way that went deeper than physical tiredness. Her heart had been carrying the weight of an unspoken love for too long, and now she wasn't sure how to go on. It had been a few days since her conversation with Jack. She hadn't heard from him since that painful phone call, and she wasn't sure whether to feel relief or dread. On one hand, she was glad that it was over, that the emotional roller coaster was finally coming to an end. On the other hand, the silence was deafening. She couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. She couldn't forget the way Jack's voice had cracked when he admitted how he felt. She couldn't ignore the truth that had been right in front of her the entire time. Jack was conflicted, and that conflict had only hurt everyone involved. Lily had avoided Emma for a few days after Jack's confession, telling herself it was for the best. She didn't want to betray her friend. She didn't want to say anything that could ruin their marriage, or even worse, destroy their friendship. She knew it was wrong to keep the truth from Emma, but what could she do? The situation was beyond anything that could be fixed. What happened between her and Jack wasn't just about one mistake. It was about feelings that had been ignored for too long, and the fallout from that. But now, as the silence dragged on, Lily felt that familiar ache in her chest, the ache that came from knowing Emma was unaware of the truth. She had promised herself that she wouldn't let her friendship with Emma suffer, but every day the distance between them seemed to grow. She couldn't even look Emma in the eye without feeling like a fraud. The guilt consumed her. But there was nothing she could do to ease it. She had to live with the consequences of her choices, and the reality of it was that there was no easy way out. One afternoon, as Lily sat in her living room, scrolling aimlessly through her phone, her screen lit up with a message from Emma. It had been several days since Emma had last reached out, and Lily's heart skipped a beat when she saw her best friend's name. "Hey, I miss you. Can we talk?" Lily felt a wave of nausea wash over her. She didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to explain the mess she had made. But Emma was persistent. Lily had always admired that about her. Emma never gave up when it came to the people she loved. "I miss you too. Can we meet up later?" Lily quickly typed, hoping that the words would come more easily in person. The response came almost immediately. "Absolutely. I'll be there in an hour." Lily took a deep breath, steeling herself for the conversation. She had no idea what Emma wanted to talk about, but she knew one thing for sure. This was the moment she had been dreading. She had to face Emma. She had to tell her the truth. There was no more running, no more hiding. When Emma arrived, she was as radiant as always. Her smile, the one that Lily had always admired, was a little more subdued this time. There was something in her eyes that made Lily's stomach tighten. She couldn't help but wonder if Emma already knew. Had she noticed the distance between them? Had she sensed something was off? "Lily, I've been thinking a lot about you," Emma began as she sat down across from her. "You've been so distant lately, and I don't understand why. You're my best friend. We're supposed to be able to talk about anything, but lately you've been shutting me out. Is it something I've done? Did I hurt you in some way?" Lily's heart ached as Emma's words hung in the air. It felt like a knife twisting in her chest. How could she explain the depth of the betrayal without causing irreparable damage? She had to be careful. She had to be honest, but not too honest. She couldn't break Emma's heart. "Emma, "It's not you," Lily said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. It's me. I've been struggling with some things and I didn't know how to talk to you about them." Emma frowned, her concern deepening. "Lily, you can talk to me about anything. You know that, right?" Lily looked down at her hands, unable to meet Emma's eyes. She couldn't face the truth. She couldn't look at her best friend and admit what she had done. How could she? How could she be the person who shattered everything between them? "Emma, I don't know how to say this," Lily began, her voice barely a whisper. "But I think it's time you knew something. Something you deserve to know." Emma leaned forward, her expression now full of worry. "What's going on, Lily? What's been going on with you?" Lily took a deep breath, trying to steady her shaking hands. She couldn't keep the secret any longer. It was tearing her apart. I love Jack." The words hung in the air between them, their weight suffocating. Lily's heart raced as she finally allowed the truth to spill out of her. She had kept this inside for so long, but now that it was said, it felt like a dam had broken. Emma blinked, her face going pale. "What do you mean? You love Jack?" Her voice was shaky, almost disbelieving. Lily nodded, unable to stop herself from crying. "I've loved him for so long, Emma. I never meant for it to happen. I never wanted to hurt you, but I can't hide it anymore. I thought I could keep it inside, but every day it's been eating me alive. I'm so sorry." Emma stared at her, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. You love my husband?" Lily nodded, feeling as though the world was crumbling around her. "I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted to betray you, but the truth is I can't pretend anymore. Jack and there's something between us. But he's married to you, and he loves you, and I had to walk away. I couldn't be the person who stood in the way of your happiness." Emma's face was a mix of anger and confusion, her eyes welling with tears. "How could you do this to me, Lily? How could you keep something like this from me?" I didn't know what to say. "I didn't want to hurt you," Lily replied, her voice breaking. "But I was hurting every day, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I couldn't keep lying to you. You deserved to know the truth." Emma stood up, pacing the room, her hands trembling. "How could you think it was okay to keep this from me? How could you keep something like this a secret? I trusted you. You were my best friend, Lily." I know," Lily whispered, her voice full of regret. "And I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to make it right." Emma stopped pacing and turned to face her. "Did Jack know? Did he feel the same way?" Lily nodded, swallowing hard. "Yes, he told me. He said he couldn't ignore how he felt, but he didn't want to do anything about it. He chose you. He chose his life with you, and I respected that. But it doesn't change how I feel." Emma took a step back, her face twisted in pain. "So, you two just— what? Kept this secret from me? You knew how much I loved him, how much I trusted both of you, and you kept this from me? I'm so sorry, Emma. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you, but I couldn't keep it inside any longer." The silence between them was suffocating. Emma wiped away a tear, her hand trembling. "I need some time, Lily. I need to process all of this. I can't even look at you right now." Lily nodded, her heart breaking. She knew this was the end. There was no coming back from this. She had lost everything. Her best friend, her place in Emma's life, and perhaps even Jack's trust. She had destroyed it all with one simple truth. "I understand," Lily whispered, standing up. "I'll give you all the time you need." Emma walked to the door, pausing before she left. She looked at Lily one last time, her face a mixture of hurt and betrayal. "I don't know if we can fix this, Lily. I really don't." And with that, Emma was gone. Lily stood there for what felt like hours, unable to move. The pain was overwhelming, but it was nothing compared to the relief that came with telling the truth. She had broken everything, but now, for the first time in a long time, she felt free. The weight of her secret had been lifted, and though it came at the cost of everything she had known, she realized that the truth, painful as it was the only way forward. The next few weeks were a blur. Emma and Lily didn't speak. Jack reached out a few times, but Lily couldn't bring herself to talk to him. She had made her choice, and she had to live with the consequences. Slowly, she started to rebuild her life. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And as time passed, Lily realized that maybe, just maybe, she would find a way to heal. She wasn't sure what the future held, but one thing was certain. She could never go back. She could only move forward, and for the first time, she was ready to face whatever came next.